Welcome to Getting Personal with Plant Medicine. I'm your host, Diana Crash, and I am joined once again by Seraphina Capranos, a certified herbalist and homeopath. How are you doing today, Seraphina?
I'm really good. I'm just sitting by the window. It's raining and it's a beautiful misty day.
Oh, nice. It's about to be a beautifully muggy day here, so I'm hoping that it doesn't get too muggy. But anyway. All right, so today we're going to talk about plant medicine and how it intersects with perimenopause. And I know that's in your wheelhouse for sure. So, can you start by talking about which herbal remedies support women or other people who are navigating perimenopause?
Yeah, so as a herbalist and a homeopath, what I do as a holistic practitioner is I kind of take a step back and we don't we don't solely treat, and I'm putting that in air quotes, that word treat. We don't solely treat based on a diagnosis or even a label. So yes, it's an easy way to explain where we're at in life. Someone might say, "Hey, I'm perimenopausal. I've got all these wacky symptoms going on." Or my doctor might say, or my acupuncturist might say that I'm in menopause. What do I do? And so my perspective, like many of my herbal colleagues, is we'll say, well, first of all, what's the symptom presentation? What's happening in the ecosystem of your body? And instead of just throwing herbs at you, I'm more interested in what's happening. What's the unique symptom presentation that you, Diana, might have? Let's say if you're in that phase, or your friend. Like, how are you two different? How are you representing or expressing those symptoms? And then what I do, and our approach as herbalists, is we always look at supporting the liver. And we talked about this the last time we were together, like supporting the liver and also supporting the nervous system. And here's where nature is really cool and intelligent, is often women will come to me with symptoms of perimenopause. So perimenopause can happen for some as early as 30, way up into your 40s, and perimenopause is before menopause. So menopause, just to give some folks some definitions, menopause is the actual year of you haven't had any period, no period for a whole year. That once you're past that mark of 1 year, then you are in menopause. But for many women, or people experiencing perimenopause, those who go through a reproductive cycle or menstrual cycle, it can happen as early as 30. One of my very best friends went into menopause at 34. And here's why, and here's where it gets interesting, is she went through a serious stress and a period of trauma. And sometimes shock or trauma can send us into early menopause, or for folks listening, they might have gone through a really hard time in life and their periods just stopped for like a long period of time, maybe when they were 20 or 25. That doesn't mean that they're in menopause, but it does mean that their hormonal system took a hit. So I just wanted to create some of that context before I even talk about herbs. And so if I have somebody who's 30, 35, 40, and they're going through perimenopause, which might look like really irregular periods, hot flashes, joint pain, their memory, they might start feeling like out of it because their memory is not what it used to be. They might be experiencing hair loss. They might be experiencing low libido or vaginal dryness. And there's other symptoms, sudden unexplained weight gain or bloating, or they notice their appetite is greatly reduced. They're not metabolizing food as well. They're not sleeping as well. Um, on and on it goes. And then there can be anxiety that's unexplained. There can be mood changes that feel unexplained. There can be depression that feels unexplained. And it's out of their norm. That's really important to emphasize. These are a collection of symptoms that they haven't normally experienced. So if someone came to me with a couple of those symptoms and they said things are different, my two strategies will be, number one, supporting their liver to be clearing hormonal metabolites. So making sure that their liver, which has over 800 functions, is properly and healthily clearing any excess hormones, let's just say, and other metabolites that can create I kind of describe it as a traffic jam in the body. And that's where a lot of frustration and irritation and hot flashes can come from. Then my next approach is to support their nervous system. And I always say to women in their early 30s or all through their 30s, I say, how you go through perimenopause, it is kind of characterized by how the last 10 years of your life have been in terms of stress and how your nervous system and neuroendocrine system have been operating. So the herbs for the liver, last time we talked about motherwort, that's still one of my favorites for this phase of life. But what I also might be bringing in are herbs like wild yam, which can be very soothing and supportive. Some people think it has progesterone in it. It doesn't. And then my other herb that I love for this phase of life, perimenopause in particular, is Vitex. Vitex agnus chastis, which is called chaste tree berry. And that's one of my all-time favorites. And I might have mentioned this the last time we were together, but it's a really important herb for perimenopause and even early menopause. And a few reasons why. It kind of has that dopamine feel-good feeling. And then what it also does is it helps by working through the pituitary, it helps to regulate and normalize a healthy menstrual cycle. So it can take care of some of that menstrual irregularity and also that low mood. And it can also even bring back a sex drive if somebody hasn't had that in a long time and they want it back.
That's great. I was hoping you would mention wild yam because I do have a question about that because one of the other ways that you can go through menopause is one of the way in your early 20s, like I did, is medically when they basically put you into it with pharmaceuticals. And I didn't really understand at the time. And I trusted my doctor a lot more back then. So anyway, my point being, I know that there are some concerns about using wild yam with pharmaceuticals that can affect your hormones. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's largely theoretical, actually, that caution. As a herbalist, because we don't use like this herb for that disease, it's not like a replacement for pharmaceuticals in traditional herbalism. There are some people who might use herbs that way, but I don't, and many of my colleagues, professional herbalists, don't. So my question would be, why would a person want to use wild yam? I use wild yam for back spasms. It's a major antispasmodic.
Wow.
So the best way to be using wild yam is for pain.
Mm.
And sometimes it's given for menstrual cramps, or it's given for painful periods or anxiety or stress due to hormonal disruption. But that's the proper use of wild yam. It does not have progesterone in it. And it does have some what are called saponins, which can have a hormonal-like effect on us and influence our hormones. But mainly how wild yam works is as an antispasmodic and to support hepatic function. That's liver function. So there would be other herbs that I would look at. And if you wanted to describe a series of symptoms, we could get into that.
Well, pretty much everything you covered. I can't think of anything except for mood swings. That was something I definitely I experienced. That's the only thing I think that you didn't cover, but
Yeah,
I think
no,
it's kind of
that's a good one. Thanks for bringing that up, Diana, because mood swings are a big deal for people going through any kind of hormonal or menstrual cycle. Because one way to look at the menstrual cycle is like the dark moon phase and the full moon phase. And there are some chapters, some parts of our cycle, some times in our cycle and I want to just say, if folks listening have had a hysterectomy, full or partial, or they no longer menstruate anymore, you're still going through these cycles and phases. It's not dependent solely on those organs, by the way.
Yep.
So yeah, if you're going through like major mood swings I just want to jump back for a minute and say, if folks listening have had a partial hysterectomy, so their uterus has been removed, but they still have ovaries, those ovaries are still secreting some estrogen. Estrogen is also in our fat cells. Estrogen has a lot of other functions. So I just want to give a shout out to those folks who might feel unincluded in this conversation, because you're still included. So if you're going through mood swings and it feels hormonally related, this is the cool thing about herbs, because we're not doing this for that. We're looking at the constellation of the whole person. So if someone comes to me with mood swings, I might be looking at, I want to ask, tell me more about those mood swings. Do they feel cyclical? Does it feel like you're in a good mood for a week or two, and then almost like clockwork, you're in a bad mood for a week or two of your cycle of a cycle? Or is it cyclical? And if it is cyclical, then we may want to bring in herbs that work on smoothing those liver channels and making sure that we have some balance in our hormonal system. So once again, the liver herbs and what I call relaxing nervines, which also work on the liver. So a good example of that, along with motherwort, that we mentioned in our last podcast episode together, is lemon balm. Is a really nice one because it brings sweetness. And it's a specific herb for social anxiety. So if you have social anxiety, if you feel like you've got anticipatory anxiety, that means anxiousness at the beginning or in anticipation of an event. Mm-hmm. Lemon balm may be your friend. And if you feel hot and irritable, or there's excess anger with your mood swings, then you might also want to be using something like lemon balm, which is cooling and soothing. Or if your mood swings are more like heavy depression, numbness, apathy, if that's more the quality of your mood swing, then you might want something like, I love cinnamon and hawthorn, and these herbs kind of help pick us up, and they're warming and they're circulating. And so we want to bring some of that warmth. We want to bring another herb that a lot of people don't use anymore is dandelion flower.
I love you said that. I was literally just like, because I have in my plans for this week to start making dandelion flower tincture.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about what you said about mixing marshmallow root, maybe. Like, I was wondering if that was even possible, putting the two of those together in a tincture.
Of course it is. I think that would be really great. And if you take it and it feels good, send me an email and let me know. But dandelion flower brings joy back to our life. So if somebody has that heavy depression, they feel like there's no way out, I'm stuck, will things ever change? I feel the weight of the world. It's for like that burnt out activist feeling. Like, I've been fighting for change my whole life. I've been fighting for change in my family system, in my relationships, for the environment, for systems of justice. And I feel burnt out. Why bother? Like, cynicism has got you, depression, low mood, all of that. Dandelion flower, consider that. I think putting that together with marshmallow root would be really beautiful. And what I would add in there, Diana, is also rose petal and something like ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is another major one for these times of hormonal change, because it helps us sleep, it helps us relax, get into our body. And it helps us fill up our cup when we're burnt out, like that endocrine exhaustion from burning the candle at both ends.
Absolutely. I love all of that. I'm like, yes, can I get a big cup of all of that? So you already spoke to it a little bit with the wild yam, but I know there are a lot of misconceptions, even from people like on TikTok who say that they're amateur herbalists, like, myself. I don't purport to be an expert in any of this yet. But what are some common misconceptions that people have about using plant medicine during perimenopause?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that herbs contain estrogen and progesterone. They don't. They absolutely do not. Herbs can support the body and usually it's through the pituitary, which is an endocrine gland that sits deep near our brain, in our heads, and herbs can have a function and action on the pituitary, and therefore that can have a cascade effect of supporting our hormones. But plants themselves do not have hormones. There are drugs that are used to make synthetic hormones from plants, but that's a whole other process that requires a laboratory. Another misconception is that, um, I mean, I'm not on TikTok really, so maybe you can tell me the kinds of things you hear. I'd actually be interested to know what's circulating out there.
Hmm.
But I think that's the biggest misconception that I do hear is like, oh, can I take wild yam for progesterone? Can I take black cohosh for estrogen? No, it doesn't work that way. Plants do have what are called phytoestrogens, and maybe this is where the confusion comes
Yeah.
in. Phytoestrogens, that word phyto is in there. That phyto means plant, estrogens, but they do not work the same way as human estrogens. So people might be surprised to hear sweet potatoes have phytoestrogens. Alfalfa sprouts on your sandwich have phytoestrogens. A lot of vegetables and things that you drink every single day or eat every single day contain phytoestrogens. What these do is they actually have a very supportive function in that they kind of lock in to our body's estrogen receptor sites, and they have almost like I'm going to use this word carefully, almost like a detox, a really nice, very, very mild detox action on our physical body, which is good for us. Lentils have good phytoestrogens. Beans have good phytoestrogens. So when we eat those foods that contain phytoestrogens, what they do is they help to naturally cleanse our body, and they're good for our hormones. So when you see things out there on social media that say, eat a hormone-friendly diet, often those diets are high in fruits and vegetables that naturally contain phytoestrogens. But what's great about that is we're not eating a lot of non-food foods. That's what I call junk food, is non-food foods, that are going to kind of block our detox pathways. So in short, it's about keeping our detox pathways nice and clear so that our body can break down hormones. Also, what I'll say, there are things in the environment that are called xenoestrogens, and these are chemicals that are harmful for our body. They're in plastics. They are in a lot of chemicals like shampoos and conventional cosmetics, and this is why we want to use natural shampoos and unscented products. Xenoestrogens are in like the laundry soap you use and petrochemicals. When we inhale them or we're exposed to these xenoestrogens, then those lock into our receptor sites. And that's when we have all kinds of hormonal disruption happening in our body. So let me know if I'm confusing you at all,
No.
because this can be confusing for people. And I teach this. I spend like a whole day talking about this in Herbal school because it's so important. And this is why there's all these movements towards like use unscented products, use natural products, get rid of your mainstream laundry detergent, get rid of all these petrochemicals in our environments, off-gassing, formaldehyde, all the crap that's in our mainstream clothing, is because one of these chemicals mimic hormonal structure. So it's about a chemical structure. And when we're exposed to them, it can create hormonal disruption. That's why when you meet people who are on a hormonal friendly diet, or they're trying to remedy things like PCOS or other hormonal conditions, they're eating kind of clean and they're kicking all the mainstream fragrance shampoos and conditioners and deodorants because they're trying to get rid of those xenoestrogens so our body can detox toxins, essentially.
Wow. It's like I know all of that, on some level, but then when you hear it all put together like that, it's like, wow, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
That is really interesting. So, what are some of the considerations a person should take before they start to implement herbal supplements or remedies for perimenopausal symptoms?
So again, herbs don't work like drugs. So you want to bring herbs into your life to support you. I would always look at your diet first. Food first. Food is medicine. So it's not about being a perfect diet. It's not about being like be careful of all those social influencers who live this like so-called pristine life. It's not about that. It's just about bring more vegetables into your life.
Mm.
Herbs are plants and vegetables are plants. So bring plants, more plants into your life. And use the harm reduction model. If you love burgers and fries, great. Just add a cup of broccoli to your burger and fries, or bring in some arugula, or start your day with lemon water and a fresh apple, ideally organic for the reasons I just explained to avoid chemicals. Do that first. And I'm not kidding. If all you did was have a nice organic apple once a day, add that broccoli to your burgers and fries, and maybe have another serving of greens with whatever dinner you're eating, that alone is going to improve your hormonal picture.
I love that you just said that. Sorry to interject, but I just
Please.
a lot of the issues I take with the like you just said, the influencer hot takes about nutrition is because it ignores things like food deserts and how bonkers prices are right now for people. And, so trying to find accessible ways to, you know, like you said, add more to your life is huge because I think a lot of people just kind of tune out because they're like, this isn't accessible, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I have a big issue with that as well, is so often these social influencers or people who have the loudspeaker on health, it's so privileged. It's like they're living in a little fishbowl. It's like, who can afford the way that you eat or do exercise or all the supplements you're taking? That's just not realistic. And I'm a clinical practitioner, so I see people who are unhoused. I see single moms who are living in transition houses. I see all kinds of people, including the very wealthy. But I'm interested in making this accessible and knowing that it is your human right to know how your body works, even on a basic level, and to know what the foundations of health is. Health as defined as a way that you can live more freely in your life. Not health is not the absence of disease. You can live with disease, you can live on medication and still be healthy. That is not the definition of health.
Mhm.
And then it's about what can you do to add more plants into your life in a way that's sustainable, affordable, and accessible. And that's why I love weeds, because if you even had a tiny, tiny little pot, like a little pot on your balcony or your porch, if you live in an apartment, or if you are unhoused living on the road, it could literally be like on your on the seat of your car, and just grow microgreens, grow weeds like dandelion,
Mhm.
and eat that. Get that into your body, because the the diversity of plant constituents that are in one dandelion leaf is profound.
Yes.
It's more than the diversity and the health qualities in one dandelion leaf. You got to make sure it's unsprayed and no dog is pissed on it.
See, to that point, I was just going to ask you off off script here. I don't know if you want to say any specific brands or anything like that, but let's say the only option is going out and sourcing them. You live in an apartment like I do, and there's growing all outside in the little patches of land that you have. So that's the only way right now I can go get them. Do you have some type of like cleanser, or because I know there are washes out there that are supposed to get rid of it. Is that even possible?
Yeah, so I would say if you live in an apartment in a city and you want to go get some dandelions and increase all that beautiful phytochemistry in your life, I would scout a location, and kind of just keep an eye on it. Is it You don't want to go where the dog park is. You also don't want to go where there's a lot of traffic and car exhaust.
Mm.
Like, not, I wouldn't go to a parking lot.
That like pretty much eliminates the whole everywhere
Yeah,
around me because there's so many
but
dogs.
yeah, but I bet you, and I remember having to do this when I spent some time in Jersey a long, long time ago, is we like took a bus, or and then when my friend had a car, we'd drive out kind of to the outskirts of town, like near schoolyards. Schoolyards
Mm.
are great places to scout and just see, like, are there some dandelions hanging out at a schoolyard, or community centers. Like, usually there's places that have green spaces around them in the city, community centers, public parks, where there's usually an area where there's no dogs allowed, retirement homes, and schoolyards. And that's often where we would go and scout for dandelions. They're not necessarily going to be in the big field, but they might be like up against the building somewhere. And that's where I would go and I would harvest them. The other place that you can go sometimes is your city might have a botanical center. Universities or colleges are also great places to go and scout for wild herbs.
Oh, yes, for sure. But what about like getting, because you can't tell for sure that they haven't been sprayed by something. So what would you do? Like, is there a homemade wash that you recommend or
Yeah, so in terms of washes, vinegar.
vinegar? So that's what I was gonna ask because I have a huge thing of it, and I'm like, I think that works, right?
Yep, it's cheap. It's cheap, and a lot of those vegetable washes are mostly vinegar and a little vitamin C, like citric acid. You don't need to buy the vitamin C, but just vinegar, and squirt a little bit of lemon juice on them.
Right. Yeah. So keeps it fresh. Right. Perfect. Okay. I love that. So I know that you can't, go against someone's privacy. There are a lot of rules and regulations about that. But do you have any specific case studies or just like some story that you might want to reflect on about how plant medicine has helped relieve perimenopause symptoms, maybe in one of your patients or
Yeah,
fellow
absolutely.
practitioners?
Yeah, so I'm thinking of somebody just recently who I saw who had depression. She was tearful, joint pain, hot flashes, and irregular periods. And she felt like, is this the rest of my life? I can't live like this anymore. And she's a mom of two teenage daughters, single mom, and working three jobs, just so stressed. And I said to her very similarly to what I shared here, which is what's one thing, just one thing, one way that you can get more variety of vegetables into your life. And she's like, look, I'm too busy. I can barely cook for my family. Like we usually just grab takeout. I don't know what I can do here. And I said, okay. And we just kind of went through a list of things, and she decided she really liked arugula. That's something that she could get down with. And so I said, literally, just grab buy those containers of arugula salad, and just, you don't even have to make a salad. Just have a bite, like have bites of it, just like that. You can hide it in sauces, hide it in your pasta. It doesn't matter. Just get it in you. And the reason we wanted to do that is to cool her liver heat. So she had so
Mm,
much anger and resentment. She was just like churning. She'd
wow.
be up at night.
Cut to me just not just shoving arugula in my mouth later.
Yeah, yeah. Just as a way to get more fiber, your poops will be better. Like so much can improve with more fiber. And then the other thing we did, because she's a busy mom, she didn't have a lot of money. I made her a tincture that contained Vitex, so that's chaste tree berry, because she was perimenopausal, which means she still had cycles. And Vitex it has that dopamine effect, so it can really help elevate mood, and it can also regulate periods and make periods less heavy. Because the other thing she had was, she said she was like, it was almost like she was hemorrhaging. Her bleeding was so heavy. It was
Like,
like,
are you talking about me? Sure.
yeah, and it was embarrassing. She's
Yeah.
like, I don't know if I can like go in public. I just feel like I need to wear diapers and
Hmm.
change it every hour. So much blood. And she was checked out by a doctor. She didn't have anything medically wrong with her. And they wanted to put her on birth control, if you can imagine, to take care of this, which she did not want to do. So I gave her, here's my other herb for heavy, heavy bleeding that's really key for perimenopause, and that is yarrow.
Mm.
Yarrow and lady's mantle. Yarrow and lady's mantle.
I've been reading a lot about yarrow lately. Sorry to cut you
Yeah,
off. I've just been
so
like
good.
really obsessed with that. I can't wait to start trying putting that into the routine.
That is one of my favorite herbs too. So I gave her yarrow, which is, again, it's a weed, it's wild, it's like ridiculously easy to grow and so beautiful and powerful. And so yarrow, lady's mantle with a little bit of shepherd's purse in there. And I said, take a teaspoon every couple hours as soon as you start menstruating. And that worked so well for her. And she said, she wasn't anemic anymore because she wasn't losing as much blood. She didn't have to miss work time
Wow.
because she was bleeding like crazy. It improved her confidence because she was no longer worried about going out in public. And that's an important thing. We want people to feel well in their life. It's not only about alleviating symptoms, it's about confidence and psychological wellness, mental wellness, of course. So that's what we did. And that is a key herb I use in perimenopause for that heavy bleeding. And then also, yarrow reduces menstrual pain, and it kind of eases our mood as well when we're feeling tired and worn out and angry and frustrated and irritated, all those hot liver symptoms. So that's key. So Vitex, chasteberry improves mood. It helps to make those irregular periods regular. And then yarrow with lady's mantle and shepherd's purse for that, what we call flooding, heavy, heavy bleeding.
Oh, I know about that. So, well, I am definitely going to look into the other shepherd's purse and lady's mantle, you said. So,
Mhm.
the chasteberry rang a bell in my head because you teach a course about that in one of your many offerings, educational offerings that you have. So can you talk about how the courses can help someone who is just completely overwhelmed by all of this, but they're super interested?
Yeah, absolutely. So this program that we offer online called From the Wild Edge is it's all about getting to know your body, not just your hormones. No matter what phase of life you're in. We talk about burnout, we talk about bone health, we talk about digestive health, we talk about sleep, we talk about just everything to do with our bodies. And of course there is an emphasis on hormonal cycling. Again, doesn't matter the phase of life. And why my colleague Dr. Carly Deneen and I created this program is because like there is like a garden of power and wisdom and intelligence in our bodies. And I just want every woman to know that. I want every woman to know your body is powerful. You are not defined by your so-called disease, or you can be on medication and be healthy. You can also increase your health to come off of medication if that's a safe option for you. And there are ways to have that knowledge in your hands. And plants are powerful. Plants are life-changing. Plants are deeply, deeply intelligent. We've co-evolved with them. So our physiology understands their language, their biochemical language, and vice versa. So this program really is about demystifying a lot of health related concerns for the modern woman. And it's about teaching you about herbal medicine. And then we put it in a container of myth and folklore and magic and ritual because we are more than the sum of our parts. And myth and folk tales, they touch something deep inside of us. They touch a deep part of our humanity. And they hold up a mirror so that we can see ourselves reflected in these folk tales and myths as a way to understand that what we're going through, people have been going through since time immemorial. And then I teach ritual. I've been a initiated priestess for 20 years, so I teach ritual, very simple rituals as a way to communicate to the sacred order of life and be in that relationship with the world and the earth, to remember that we belong to it and it belongs to us.
I love that. And I can't wait to continue the courses. So, before we go, do you have anything else that you would like to promote, and where can people find you?
Yeah, if people want to dip their toe into plant medicine and especially plant spirit medicine, I also have a program. You can find it on my website, seraphinacapranos.com. It's a self-paced, on-demand online course, and it was recorded live to a live class, so you get the benefit of class discussion and to kind of peer into that. And it's an incredible way to um, build a relationship with plants. It's not overwhelming. It's a really nourishing herb where I invite you to taste herbs and have a direct experience with them. So I highly recommend that course. if people want to dip their toe in, it's inexpensive, and there's a payment plan for it as well. So
Oh, I love that.
seraphinacapranos.com, and it's called The Intro to the Alchemy of Herbal Medicine online.
I love that. And I also plan on taking it. So I will link to that in the show notes, by the way, for those listening. Thank you so much for joining me again. Please come back anytime.
I would love that.
This episode was produced by Your Highness Media, audio editing done by James Crash, and sponsored by mitragaya.com. Be sure to subscribe and rate our podcast if you haven't yet. And subscribe to our Your Highness Media newsletter on Substack for everything new going on in the Your Highness Media world.